I'm gonna just hit the record, just it's gonna yell.
Recording in progress.
There you go.
Okay, the recording is in progress. So let's open with the floodplain development ordinance for the town of Lyme. I believe we made two suggestions that I hope are duly noted. Okay, so, let's see. Is it?
Maybe that's what
I'm not sure about that.
Okay, maybe that's my view.
Go through.
Oh, the cross-outs, you mean?
No, we made a couple of suggestions,
Oh, okay.
because of terminology.
And I printed off the,
The old one?
yeah, so that.
So that's not gonna do us any good.
Well, I'm not sure, I thought I had the new one, but, you know, if you don't see them, then I printed off the wrong.
Yeah, I think one of them had to do with,
Was one of them perhaps item 2, the definition of special flood hazard area? Or was that maybe different?
so where was that?
So that would be page 4,
Item two.
the area of special flood hazard.
Maybe that was a
3.
note that I had to myself.
All I know is FEMA's really particular about how things are defined.
Yeah, we didn't actually make the changes, we put them in as suggestions.
Oh, to FEMA,
Yeah,
Okay.
because of that issue.
yeah. They're really particular. And they need to certify that our regulations conform with the federal standards so that the town can qualify for the flood insurance.
Right, one of the things had to do with insurance, because, as I recall, and I think the other had to do with the definition of something like a 100-year flood, because it's no longer a 100-year flood.
Oh, yeah, here it is, right here.
Yeah.
We cross that out, we have a base flood elevation.
Well, that's that. All right, so, David, do you have the,
I'm trying to find, someone had, I believe, sent them to me, but I'm having trouble finding.
I think I sent them to you.
Well, hold it, are these things we wanna suggest to FEMA and that we're not doing here? Not,
Well, what we passed, we decided to send this to
Uh-huh.
hearing, as I recall,
yep,
and we didn't wanna get involved in messing up their work, but
Right.
there seemed to be two suggestions that
Okay.
people wanted
well, maybe
them.
we can find them when David finds them, because we can just have the hearing on the
Yeah,
changes
all
that
right.
FEMA's required.
Let's
and
just
vote them in, vote them to.
vote
Yeah.
on this ordinance, and then you can find those things, because they're just suggestions.
Yep.
All right, did anybody have anything to say about the floodplain development ordinance for the town of Lyme? Well, then I'd like to make a motion to adopt it as,
No, don't we send it to town meeting?
Send it to town meeting.
yeah, okay, sorry, to send it to town meeting.
I'll second the motion to send it to
Vicky
town meeting.
seconds, all those in favor, all those opposed, passes unanimously. And let's get the minutes out of the way. Anybody have changes to the minutes?
I gave some typos to David,
Yeah.
Okay,
I got the same ones.
yeah, other names and
Yeah.
identities,
Yeah. Change to protect the innocent.
yeah.
So you have Carl and Peter McLaughlin?
Yep,
Okay.
And Roby, and
and Roby is spelled.
Roby.
With a Y.
Spelled.
Yeah, between Vicky and David Roby, I was having problems with my I's and Y's.
And then actually the minutes of 10:27, John Sauer moved to perhaps approve as amended
Sure.
instead of pass. That's all I have.
And the only thing, I will probably, if the board is agreeable to this, change, just remove the initials and put in full names.
Yes,
just-
Sure,
Absolutely, yes.
But I did not have a chance to do that today.
okay.
So are we changing, correcting Peter McLaughlin's last name?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, I have that.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the minutes as amended by several people.
Second.
Second by Tim, all those in favor?
Uh,
All those opposed, okay, great. All right, so let's move on to the consideration of the solar energy systems amendment. And do we have people on?
Yeah, Sam is here.
Okay.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Sam,
Hi, Sam.
thanks for joining us.
Pleasure.
I'd like to give the board an opportunity to, everybody to weigh in on what they're thinking right now. So somebody go for, Tim.
All right, I guess what I'd like to say is, after reading Mark's comments, which, thank you, Mark, for doing that, it makes me realize that we really don't know a lot of what's going on, and we really haven't even discussed some of the important things, it seems like. The Community Power Coalition seems like it's something that really should be looked into, especially if group net metering would be in competition with that, which I think Mark is thinking it might be. So it just seems like we need to really look at the whole thing to do a better job for what's best for Lyme. It also seems like a lot of this is pretty new, and what towns are looking into, like Hanover and Lebanon and whatever, it's kind of just the beginning of this, and we really need to do the right thing by Lyme. I think we really need to, really find out what's going on and not do anything right now.
So you'd like to, basically, not go forward with our amendment or the modifications on the amendment?
Well, I'm not sure about I guess go either way on our amendment, but as far as anything else, I think it would serve the town better if we just find out what's going on. And I think, as I said, I think a lot of this is just new, it's coming up now, and we really need to get some more information.
Okay.
Was Mark's email to the board?
Yeah,
I forwarded it to,
I didn't get a copy.
It was, on Sunday, the 4th of December.
Maybe there's a printed copy on the table over there.
yes,
Great.
There, he
Oh, Oh, wow,
was lengthy.
I guess so. Yeah, no, it's either in my spam folder or I wasn't on the list. David did me.
Yeah, Mark can send it to you, I see it.
all right, let's keep going. Anybody else have some, David Kahn?
I agree with Tim, I think, and I think I expressed this a little bit last week. I think trying to address these larger systems in the abbreviated time that we have left before our deadline to present something for town meeting, that there's just not time to do a thorough or careful job on it. Tactically, I worry a little bit about presenting the amendment that we had been working on without the provision for the larger systems. I worry that if the piece addressing larger systems is presented on its own, its chance of passing is much smaller. There are people who will object to it, And we've already seen a little bit of that from folks like Dave Roby. And if it's packaged together with other things that people are in favor of, you may get people who are willing to support the larger systems because they like the overall package. If we present it piecemeal, I think the chances of having a provision the following year that just addresses the larger systems pass on its own is probably, at least my guess of the politics of it is that its chance of passage is much smaller. And maybe that's okay, but.
So let's, all right, so let's put things in let's decide whether we can consider what we wanna do with the amendment that we had separately,
Fair enough.
after we
Decide what we want to
after
do
we
with it.
decide. But you feel in terms of the this new large thing that, there's not enough time now.
I agree with Tim, and I also agree with some of the communications we got from folks in the public that David distributed over the last couple of days, that, you know, we were fairly careful, we requested public comments, and now going forward with something that, these larger systems are really a different kettle of fish.
Different
And
animal,
I think if we're gonna move forward with something like that, we owe it to the town to solicit input and to listen to what input we get back on those kind of systems.
Yeah. You wanna?
Yes, I did. Just a year ago, in summer of 2021, we passed we created the energy chapter, and we asked the town to ratify it. And,
No, we didn't ask the town to ratify that.
well, we had a public
passed-
hearing, and that becomes part of the master plan.
Right,
based on
we
that.
ratified it.
Yes, and so it says things in, that say we are facing a climate emergency, and the need to move forward is urgent, and to that end, in 2020, the town voted to pursue a goal of 100% reliance on clean, renewable sources of energy, of electricity by 2030. And then furthermore, we wrote these recommendations. We said the planning board should take this chapter as a mandate to make zoning recommendations that are more permissive for the use of renewable energy sources. That's recommended 2, and recommendation 5 is the town should facilitate siting of group net metered solar projects, where a larger, often ground-mounted solar array benefits various residents who either co-own it or subscribe to its output through New Hampshire's group net metering program. So, we have 8 years to get to 100% reliance on renewable sources. And we are presented here with an opportunity to say yes. Even if, let me finish.
No, go, please do.
Even if a 1 megawatt project only serves, in quotes, only serves 150 homes, we'd only need to have 4 more to serve substantially all power needs of Lyme. And so, if we're not gonna say yes to a project like this, I think it's incumbent on us as members of the planning board to find ways to get to 100% by 2030.
Okay.
So, that's what I say.
Vicky?
One thing I think that, what you said is true about what's in the master plan, but you need to step back. We're not taking any action on this project at all. And the other point is that this is not for Lyme people necessarily. And I'm not sure that Sam and his group would even go forward if we, he gave us some conditions, if we said it has to go to Lyme people. So I'm not feeling good about the rationale that you use, because it doesn't really support Lyme and are getting to those energy goals.
What does,
Wait, before we
So
get
that's-
into a back and
I'm
forth, I'd like to get
just saying I don't-
everybody involved.
I don't support what
No,
you're saying for that reason.
Okay, so before we get to second rounds, I want everybody, and Nat, did you wanna say something?
No.
Oh, okay. Why don't you?
Sure, well, I think we've done a lot of work, good work, and I think that, you know, allowing something up to 20,000 square feet is consistent with the rest of the zoning ordinance. And I think if we wanted to come back next year, if there's a demand and a need to expand the areas, I think that, yeah, there's a possibility that it might not pass. But I think that what we have, you know, endeavored on so far is pretty strong, and I think it does allow for a lot of group net metering, and more locally subscribed, systems. So I would be in favor of trying to address some of the comments that are pertinent to the amendment that we have before us, that's being looked at for the hearing, and you know, if in a couple weeks or the month that we have left, we feel that it's still strong enough to go before the voters, I would certainly love to see us move it forward. But I agree, I think trying to make a jump, that there are too many implications that we probably don't know what the ramifications or the unintended consequences would be. And I think that it's too big a nut for us to tackle right now, to be able to take it before the voters in 2023.
Okay. Hebe, did you wanna say something?
I feel at a disadvantage because I didn't get a chance to read all of.
All right, so what, do you wanna,
But
do you wanna say something?
I think that, it's the thought of expanding is being needlessly complicated in your minds. That some of the suggestions Sam makes for how to regulate the amount of solar power in Lyme for these large installations seem to be relatively straightforward and simple. And I think the idea that if Lyme doesn't get an absolute direct benefit from the solar, it's like, you know, water that runs off from Lyme still into the Connecticut River benefits others, but, you know, it's all helping the region become carbon neutral. And I think that that's really what the bottom line is, that it doesn't have to be that every electron captured in Lyme goes to benefit Lyme directly. I mean, what Sam is talking about is, for example, payment in lieu of taxes, and that's a direct benefit to Lyme. I know that Vicki is very avid about protecting agricultural soil, and I think that part of protecting agricultural soil means that you have to make it so that people who own agricultural soil can afford to stay on their farms or their forested land, and this having the ability to have some of these developments in town would be part of that equation. It's not just a simple up or down, you have to look at all of the complexities of the benefits that you, I think, are tuning into the naysayers rather heavily.
Who?
The comments I've heard have been generally
Okay.
tuning into the naysayers,
All right.
as opposed to like having a balanced view of some of the advantages, and to remember that the planning board is supposed to be serving all of Lyme residents. And some of this group net metering is the only way that lower income people in town would be able to participate in solar energy in general.
Okay. All right, thank you. My feeling is that merits or demerits aside, for myself, there's no way I can support even with the way it's written, and thank you, Sam, for taking the time to do that. There's just too much here that due diligence will not be served. So, you know, for instance, how can we endorse that there are 3, possibly more arrays of 200,000 K on multiple sites when we haven't done our own work? I mean, thank you, Sam, for presenting that, but we can't rely on somebody else to do that. We have to do it ourselves. The problem with this consideration is the timing more than anything else. And there's just no way to get around that. And I spent a lot of this week, I went to the site, I wrote my own suggestions about how to make this work, but I can't get around that we don't have the time. We don't know where these sites are, we don't know whether it's accurate that there are 3 more, we don't know what's around them, we know nothing about them. And frankly, we don't have enough time to study Kearsarge's proposal. So my feeling is it's unfortunate with the timing, but it's a fact, and it's not something that I feel would be responsible to ignore just because some of us might like the idea. My thoughts on this is that we should revisit it, but especially, you haven't read, I think you haven't read Mark's thing, but Mark's letter, I thought, first of all, I really appreciate how much time he must have put into it, and it's extremely articulate and well organized, and really educational. And there was a lot in here that gave me pause. I don't wanna go, you know, it's a long thing, but in terms of, there is the possibility that if we went ahead with this, that it could compete with projects that would, I think, would serve Lyme better, rather than cooperate with them. And
Can I speak to that, John? Is that possible?
sure, I'd just like to finish up.
Sure.
So my thoughts on this is that regardless of anything, there's just not enough time for us to do due diligence, so I can't support it. And I would then, once we finish discussing this, suggest that we take a look at the work that we all agreed on 100% and consider what we want to do with that. Go ahead, Sam.
Thanks, John, appreciate it. Just figured it'd be helpful to give a little bit of background here on Community Power Coalition, community power projects, and how they might interact with group net metering projects. We're very familiar with the efforts to bring about community power in New Hampshire, have had a number of conversations with the folks leading the Community Power Coalition effort. Community power and group net metering are 2 distinct statutory regimes. Community power allows a municipality to serve, in essence, as a competitive supplier and buy electricity on behalf of its residents through an opt-out administration. So the municipality, sends a letter to all residents in town saying, we're gonna become a community power provider. Would you like to get your electricity supply through that community power apparatus? And if folks don't opt out, then that's where they get their electricity supply, as opposed to, say, through Eversource or a competitive supplier like NextEra or someone like that. So in essence, it is a wholesale power deal, where the municipality is entering into a power purchase agreement with the independent power provider. So it could be a solar facility. It's a distinct legislative arrangement, again, from group net metering, and does not compete. So even if you have a municipality that is buying wholesale power on behalf of their residents from renewable energy resources, the residents of that town are still free to group net meter if they so choose. So there's no competition there. Certainly Kearsarge would be happy to explore with the town of Lyme, rather than group net metering this project, selling the power to Lyme, not through a net metering arrangement, but through a community power arrangement. We'd be very open to that.
Okay, thank you. I think at least from my point of view, there are two issues. The overriding one is the time issue.
Understood.
Which is simply that there's too much here that, we just recently learned of this. And there's just too much here that has to be checked out and understood. For us, this is the night we would have to vote to send this to the town for consideration. And I don't think we're anywhere close to being able to do that. So whatever the arguments about competition or not competition, I think these are things that can be brought out as we go forward. But I just don't see any way to responsibly send this to the town without us doing a lot more study and consideration. Vicky?
So I had a question about like Sam's language. So Sam, if you were going to have kind of a community power thing, with Lyme, would that mean that we would modify your proposal by taking out the first bullet and it'd be just exclusively for that situation where we, because you
I
can
would say
sell
that
it to the town.
a community power deal with Lyme would fall into the second bullet.
Right, and so,
Enter into an offtake arrangement exclusively with municipality or municipalities, which may
Right.
include the town.
so I think that if we had just that single bullet, then that would facilitate our being able to get by community power. And I'm looking at Mark would that be the case? And that would then be our source? I mean,
I haven't seen the bullet you're talking about, so I don't really know what you're referring to.
well, and does that put us at a disadvantage if we have a sole supplier to get the community power? I assume you go out and market and look at your best price, and that's who you go with, assuming that they are all equivalently, the equivalently green sources.
So I think the way the community power would have to work would be that Kearsarge would probably need to sell the power to Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire
I see.
rather than directly to Lyme, because
I see.
community power involves what's known as all requirements electricity service, which means the supplier is basically meeting your needs 24/7, whether or not the sun is out. And so that requires a whole level of expertise that nobody in Lyme really has. So you basically need to go through CPCNH as a middleman and hope that they can fulfill that function. So yeah, I don't think Kearsarge would be supplying Lyme directly in that case.
Okay, well, I mean, if that were if Lyme was in the community power situation, I would 100% be behind a project like what Kearsarge is saying, because I think that Lyme would be using, or that could get that much, and I'd rather have it, if it's Lyme people using it, have it located in our town than in Derry or some other place in the state. So that makes total sense to me. But you know, so, but there's so many ifs, I mean, I don't know, maybe that's the language we should adopt, and, you know, with the, you know, it goes to the community power, and then hope that Lyme gets community power. I'm kind of listening to what Dave said about, probably the larger project wouldn't go through unless batched with this. On the other hand, I'm also thinking that if the larger one is on here, maybe the whole shoot and match goes down. And so I don't want that to happen, at all. Because I think the work we've done is good and very appropriate for the community. So that's, well, you know, kind of what I'm thinking is, if this could be structured so that it definitely
But,
gonna
are we
benefit
really
us.
gonna be able to do that tonight?
I don't think so,
No.
but, and I also had a question just about what a reasonable market rate for a payment in lieu of taxes, what does that really mean? And could Sam answer that just for my
Sure,
interest?
Sam?
Yeah, I can speak to that. I'll just, I believe it's public information. For example, our project with Manchester, the pilot agreement we have with them is in the neighborhood of $2,000 to $3,000 per megawatt DC per year. And I have, talked with a number of other municipalities in New Hampshire about the pilots that they have signed, and many are in that neighborhood. The purpose behind that language is just to ensure that if signing a pilot with the town is a requirement for permitting your project, if you don't have any sort of protection around the pilot being market rate and being in line with what other towns are doing, Lyme holds all the cards and can pretty much hold a project's feet to the fire and say, well, if you don't pay, a pilot at X rate, take it or leave it, we're not gonna give you your permits.
Right, okay, thanks for that explanation, and so, actually, it would make sense for the, pilot to be a variable type of thing based on the market, is that what this implies then? That's not a fixed rate for the life of the project, but would vary every year?
No, generally the way that pilots work is that you're taking what would otherwise be a dwindling cash flow, because as the project depreciates, solar projects are depreciating assets, and the taxable basis goes down, the taxes that the town receives from the project go down. So what a pilot does is, rather than taking that declining tax flow, it fixes the tax flow and equalizes it over a course of time, generally 15 to 20 years.
Yep.
So if in essence, most market rate pilot agreements are, say, $2,000 per megawatt DC, a 1 megawatt AC project, typically 1.5 megawatts DC, flat over 15 to 20 years, however long the pilot term is.
Okay. All right, thank you for that, I just wanted to.
Did you want to say something?
Well, I had a question actually from Mark, I think if he, Mark, as far as community power, what if Lyme wanted to go in with Hanover or Lebanon or some other towns that are doing it? I mean, does that work sometimes where towns get together and they do it all together?
Yeah, so Hanover and Lebanon and Plainfield and a number of other municipalities throughout New Hampshire have already joined the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire. So that's kind of the whole point of that organization, is to aggregate different municipal load together.
So we could do that if we wanted to.
Yeah, and that would probably be the most likely step if we were to proceed with this program. Yeah.
That is the
Hebe?
committee that.
I'm on the committee,
Right,
and
right.
I think that the legislation actually requires this third party that is aggregating, that Hanover and Lebanon and Plainfield have joined. I think that that's in the legislation that requires that group. And they have, I think, 25 towns have already joined across New Hampshire at the moment, which is about 15 to 25% of the power load for New Hampshire, and they're aiming to get to 50% in the next 2 years. We've looked at the sample legislation that the the enabling documents, there's a whole stack of things with like, fill in the blanks for your town. It's quite a lot, steep, learning curve for us at the moment, but it seems clear to us that it's not gonna happen this year. It's gonna be at least a year.
You mean
To
not,
join.
not 2023?
Right, but we are not gonna send something to the town to say, do you wanna join this group in 2023? It's gonna take a year to get it all.
So would the town meeting at March 24 be reasonable to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's possible that might be the best way for Lyme to go, I mean, maybe.
But I think, as
Maybe.
Sam is saying, they would be one of the vendors for power through this cooperative.
Yeah, I.
Because
yeah.
It's one of the
Go ahead.
suppliers that, and there's different, the community power has different levels of renewableness, it's like 23% or 40% or 100%, which I think there's 4 tiers that are set up generally at the moment in the community group power thing. And this would be one of the sources of renewable power. I don't understand, I'm gonna have to talk to Mark a bit about why he thinks it's in competition. This project will be in competition, I don't quite see that myself, but
But, you know,
we'll talk to him at another time.
In any case, I think there are 2 different considerations. I think it's been very tempting, beyond tempting, to fast track this, which is why we had extra meetings. An extra meeting and, put in all this extra time. But fast tracking something, on the fly with our backs against the wall is not responsible. And I think also that, we have, what until this came up was everybody on this board supported our amendment. We put in a year on it. This came up and it was very tempting to fast track it, but the time is tonight, and I don't feel confident, I can't tell a voter in Lyme that we've done our due diligence, because we absolutely have not. We have a proposal by the developer of a project, and I appreciate all the work and cooperation that Kearsarge has done. But the fact is, we haven't done our own due diligence, and it's our responsibility to do that. And it's not like if we don't do this, that we don't have anything else. We have the original amendment that we worked on, and I suspect, maybe I'm wrong, but I suspect that Lyme will be an attractive place for solar companies to visit. So I would suggest that we turn our attention to our amendment and consider what we want to do with that. What is the board's thought on that? You agree? You agree, Vicki?
Yeah, one of the things I went back to Keene, and so now I know why they have a large, because they had a small, medium, large.
Right.
And obviously, I think we need to have a small, medium, large as well.
Well,
You know,
that's what,
yeah.
actually,
That's what it comes down to, is that Keene was right,
well,
with the 3 sizes,
except that we, in retro,
yeah,
yeah, once we consider this, we're gonna need 3 tiers.
yes,
But everybody agreed earlier to the 2 tiers.
right,
So anyway, that didn't answer my question.
right.
Which is, do you wanna turn to our,
Yeah, no,
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you're basically asking for a vote on the concept that we will
well,
not address.
it's not a formal vote, because we're not voting on a,
You should vote on to send it to a public hearing and then
No, but I mean, what I'm asking is for the board's endorsement of moving on from considering Kearsarge's proposal.
And to
Because-
forego trying to
To squeeze
get
it
a
in
large system
Yeah.
into the,
tonight,
into the thing, yeah. Or before the town at the next town.
yeah, we would have to do it tonight. We would have to send it to a hearing and to legal tonight. And I don't see any way to do that.
John,
Yeah.
in doing that, we do have the comments from David Roby on December 1st pertaining to the draft amendment that we're looking at.
Right,
Would
so
it be appropriate to address
we,
those?
yeah, if we have, I mean, yeah, so we've moved on, so, Sam, you're still there?
I'm still here.
Yeah, so you've heard what the board has decided, and I'm sorry that hasn't worked out, I'm sure, as you would have hoped. But I'd like to thank you very much for your work and for frankly, I think, presenting this to us, got us thinking very differently going forward, and for all of that, I'd like to express mine and the board's appreciation.
It was our pleasure. We were very happy to serve as a resource for the board, and we'll look to continue to do so if the board does make an effort in 2023 after town meeting to consider changes to the ordinance to allow systems up to 1 megawatt AC. We'll be here.
Well, we appreciate that, and thank you very much. Okay, so to your point, Rich, one thing to keep in mind is that, yeah, I think it's a good idea to go through what we, the feedback we got. And we will, just in terms of scheduling, if we send this to the town tonight we'll send it for a hearing, we will still have the opportunity to change it at the next meeting. One word, isn't that right, David?
Yeah.
But we are cutting it as usual, really close. So, yeah, if you wanna address any of those issues.
Maybe we should just go down through it.
Yeah.
Well, let Rich get
I
started.
mean, I don't, some of them are easier than others to address, but I guess the first one was a question about cumulative footprint.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand that. Is cumulative not, is that something that really needs to be defined? Maybe it does, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. It does seem like we could perhaps add something into 514. But I think it is covered in the definitions. I mean, we talked about how footprint is measured in the definition.
Yeah.
So,
Is anybody confused about what cumulative is? Yeah, okay, I don't,
Cumulative is the total of the
Yeah,
panel size.
I don't think it's
Okay.
a problem. Okay,
I just wondered if we should have a synonym that might be different, but, it's,
aggregate, I think aggregate is more confusing.
I was just looking up to see if increasing accumulative, accumulating, growing, I don't know if any of those are appropriate.
No.
Aggregate, additory, amassed, I think this is the best word.
I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't think we have to get hung up on that. Okay, so are we just going down the list here?
I think that would be a good way to do it.
Okay, so section 514, the term footprint is not defined.
Well, it's interesting, because Keene did have something called a solar footprint.
Well,
I thought the footprint was defined by the drip edge.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Although
footprint is defined.
Well,
it's
the
harder
foot-
to understand in terms of a pole mounted system or something like that.
That's also in the ordinance. It
Yeah,
says
so in the
70%.
definitions,
Okay.
It says 70% of the
right,
area.
in the definitions, we have,
It is defined, so I'm not quite sure if he just hasn't read the whole thing.
we have, let's see, the term footprint.
Now,
Is in B, under tracking and
Right.
under
The
E.
footprint of a tracking solar, and then we have the footprint shall be measured in the fixed,
Yeah,
yeah. So it is defined.
yeah.
So I guess, is the concern maybe that it's not listed in the Article 2 definitions?
It is, that's where it is.
Oh, that's where we've added it,
Yeah,
yes.
so
yes.
maybe he's concerned that
That's
it's
where
not
we're
in
adding it.
514. Is that an issue, David Robbins?
I'm not thinking it is. I'm just also looking back and forth. There is a definition of building footprint in Article 2. And I just wanna make sure that it's not in conflict with
we wanted to change the title of 514 to just say footprint, so that it would
Yeah, that's the
deal
change.
with other
Right.
Exactly.
footprints.
Wait, what were you saying, Vicki?
Well, we've got,
In fi-
you know, we want this 514 to just say footprint, because we want to deal with structural footprints, because a solar energy system is not a building.
Yep,
So what would we do, take out building?
That's what we've got.
that's what the language, that's the proposed.
That's what we have.
That language is
Yes.
proposed.
So, I think that was the whole reasoning
Yeah.
behind that, okay. So, is anybody concerned about that?
Let's just think this through. So we have now, in the definitions section, something called building footprint.
Right.
When we eliminate the term building footprint in 514 and just call it footprint,
How
does that
how does
create-
how does that affect other things, David
Yeah.
Robbins?
well, that's where my concern is, that if you eliminate building footprint completely out of 514, then the definition really becomes moot, because it doesn't reference
So-
anything.
So why can't we just leave that as is and then make a specific definition, you know, when it comes to footprint, we can have, see Article 2 definitions.
I mean, to me, yeah, I'm looking at this in my mind, you know, you have the footprint for solar, that's all well-defined.
Right.
And if I'm looking for the footprint for the structure, and I see building footprint, I'm gonna think, okay, that's what it's talking about. And so I can see a separation of that.
Right, well, this is simple, the area occupied or affected by something.
Yeah, but I think the question is, if we just make it footprint and we take out building, is that gonna affect the rest of the ordinance in an unforeseen way?
I'd have to read through and try to find building footprint or search.
Well, why don't we add then structure footprint and building footprint, so that we're covering structural footprints and building footprints in section 514. Okay, that doesn't address David's concern that we haven't defined footprint, in the definitions, but at least it makes section 514 deal with things that are not buildings, i.e. solar energy systems.
So 514 would be building and structural footprint?
Yes, I mean, just to make it so it's inclusive, instead of eliminating building.
Or maybe,
Ricky, what did,
Or-
read
or-
what you had
hold
before
on.
this, on that thing,
David Robbins, are we still defining
the.
solar
That wouldn't be the
structure,
footprint of
the solar
panels, that would be
systems
the
as
total
structures?
footprint of the whole thing.
If this article passes, then you have defined the footprint of, you know, small and large solar systems.
Right, but would you consider them still to be structures?
I would consider them structures.
So so if we said building and structure footprint, that would cover the waterfront?
No, because if you add, it seems to me if you're adding structure to that, you're now gonna add some confusion, because
Yeah,
you're gonna be saying that any structure measures from the exterior surface.
Right, see, that's the real issue, I think, the real problem here is that there's two, we're saying the area of the panels, but that's not really what people think of, it's this affected area, what Ricky has there. So the affected area is the total area of the solar system. So it's really, that's the whole issue, you know, because people are gonna say,
No, I think you're,
well, but that's what people are gonna, you know, you say,
well, hold on,
Area.
you're talking about people's perception,
right.
but we're talking about legalities here, so let's not
Yeah,
confuse
but
the
I
two.
think- Okay.
If we were to change 514 to say building and solar footprint, would that work? Rather than
How would that be,
structural
David?
Solar panel footprint, maybe?
or solar energy
Solar
system.
energy system.
I think that would be the better.
Okay, so by changing the title 514 to building and solar energy system footprint.
And then what about the sentence that follows, the maximum, what kind of footprint? Shall be a percentage.
Let's see, what are you talking about?
So 514, we're changing it to building and solar energy system
Well, we're
footprint.
considering it.
Right, yes, but then, the next couple words are the maximum building footprint shall be. And
Right,
the maximum footprint for a building or solar energy system shall be?
Why don't we put a section 1, maximum building footprint, and 2, you know, so when you have 1, A through D, and then have 2, solar footprint is something else.
okay.
So we-
Where are you,
We're
what section? are you
right
in?
underneath the 514.
514.
Rich Brown was pointing out that this A, B, C, and D
Yeah.
really wouldn't apply
To
to
solar?
solar, because we,
Right.
Or well, if you change the title to building and solar energy system footprint, this would apply to buildings, not solar energy systems. Because it clearly states the maximum building footprint.
Right, that, and I'm saying put that in one section with A, B, C, D, and then create a section 2, which deals with solar energy system footprint. And we can say whatever we want there.
So leave 514 the way it is, and then add.
Well, add the solar system, make this 1, and then put section 2 with its own,
so what would we say in section 2?
well, we wanted to have it be more than what the other building footprint limitations were in that, so it's like the 20,000 and the 2,000.
Yeah, except those are drip line numbers,
Right.
Yes.
so that doesn't work.
Well, no, we can say whatever we want.
Yeah, but
because
if
we're
we have to say
specifying,
what
yeah.
we want, what do we
Okay.
want?
footprint, okay, well, we might wanna say, I mean, we can abstract, then the small is the cumulative footprint of that, the large is that, and then we have the 70% footprint.
Oh, yeah.
Just put the three different
I didn't have that.
situations.
I'm not following.
Okay, well, so then it's almost repetitive because it's used to define these things, right? So,
What we can say is
tracking.
essentially see the definitions and follow the directions.
Yeah, except that we need to allow it to, exceed,
10,000 square feet or
yeah,
7,000 square feet.
yeah, we need to give it the D permission to exceed
So can't we
the
just,
footprint that would otherwise be required.
instead of a section 2, can't we just add language, solar energy, or A, B, C, and D, about what can't be exceeded, that's different than what's there now?
Well, wouldn't we just put in for this 2, which pertains only to solar, the maximum solar energy system footprint shall be percentage of lots provided in 5.1, or except as otherwise permitted by special exception?
Where, I don't know where you,
I'm just reading off of 14, we stuck solar energy systems in 14D as our amendment, so we just insert that language down to the second part to address solar.
Well, are you suggesting, Vicky, that that becomes like an E?
Well, I was saying 2 sections, let's leave building stuff all up in its building thing in A, B, C, D,
Uh-huh.
and then have a second section which deals with solar. That's
So
all.
the second section would be 5.415, or?
No, it's like 514(1) and 2, I mean, I don't really know, maybe this has to be relabeled, and, we get into that reference.
so what if
probably.
we had 514 and it's building footprint, and then we have a separate thing for solar,
Exactly, that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
514A or something like that?
something like that,
514.1 and 514.2.
yes.
Yes.
Or something along those lines.
Yes, yes,
So then what do we say in dot 2?
well, we're gonna say the same thing that D says, because that's what, that's.
Except
what
as
our
otherwise
proposal is.
permitted by,
In connection with what, in connection with the solar energy system.
except in the solar energy system, it would be except as otherwise permitted by, wouldn't that be CUP?
Conditional use permit?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be actually,
Yeah.
yep.
So just, I'm
Yeah,
trying to,
right.
Yep.
right now, in the article, you've amended D, 514D, to
Right.
include solar energy systems.
That's right. But it's not a
Yeah,
building.
but that's not
Okay.
accurate, because it's not a special exception,
And it's also not a building,
and it's not a building.
Yeah.
so we need to take it out of there and leave all the building stuff and create something that allows that, additional coverage, for solar energy systems. And it's just basically, like Phoebe said, make it 514, I don't know, the numbering really shouldn't be hung up on, but it's a different section in 514 that deals with, the
Yeah, you
solar.
make
footprints.
514A apply to buildings,
Right,
514B apply
Apply to
to
solar.
solar, and you don't even have to define it in 514B, you can just cross-reference the,
Yeah, but when you say A and B, we already have an A and B.
yeah, so you change that A, B, C, and D to 1, 2, 3, and 4.
yeah, it's just a numbering thing.
Okay, so is that what people wanna do? Change the A, B, C, and D to,
That's easy, yep, and A becomes here,
so it becomes dot, I, little I,
whatever it is,
two,
doesn't matter.
little I, well, we gotta,
David can figure it out, he's,
He
It
can
looks
see how the
like the
rest of it-
convention
it
in the
just
other
goes-
parts of this
yeah.
are to just
Yeah.
use regular Roman numerals.
No, right,
Arabic.
Arabic.
Yeah. The only thing that concerns me about that that change seems like it makes a lot of sense, and it's the right way to express what we're trying to express. The only thing you wanna look at is, is 514C cross-referenced somewhere else in these regulations? And then when we make that change, all of a sudden, there won't be a 514C anymore.
Right.
It'll be 514A3, and do you have to go through the
That's
whole
a very
rest of
good
the
point.
statute
Yeah.
and, or rest of
Yeah,
the
you do.
ordinance and see if there are any,
So
anything
what
that
if, what if we go
cross-references?
back to the idea of 5141 and then keep the A, B, C, and D?
Well, it would still be.
Still be the same
You,
problem.
you could leave it as 514 and then add a new section 514.1.
Right.
And then that way,
Right,
you
right.
wouldn't change.
So if we did that, could we just leave everything?
Or you could just add a 514E and say with respect to solar energy systems, the definition of footprint is.
Except that when we start saying building and solar footprint, I wonder if it would be clearer if we said 514, building footprint, leave it alone, and then we go to 5.14, what did you say, David, 1?
Yeah.
And then have
Yeah.
solar,
Or you could just say building footprint, semicolon, solar footprint, and then it's clear that they're two separate things and you have.
I think that we should do it the way that makes sense to us. And then the issue of a cross-reference is somebody sitting with this document and doing a find 5.14 and checking to see if it's an issue.
all right, so how do people
That's
wanna,
an easy way to do it. If this document is in a.
Oh, absolutely, it's
Yeah.
in a Word document that we can search
So you
easily.
just find 5.14.
so do we wanna,
I think we should leave this the way it is.
I do too, I think we should just leave it, and so that we don't mess up inadvertently, and then add a new section, 5.14, whatever.
Dash one.
And the only thing I have concern with the way is when you go and change a reference in another line, that needs to go to the town. That change has to go to the town for approval. So you're adding,
It also needs to be in the amendment,
right,
yes.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I would try hard not to,
All I'm saying is that it's easy to test.
yeah, it's very easy to test.
So what if we have 5.14.1 titled Solar Energy, System Footprint,
Sounds good.
and then what's the language? Except as otherwise permitted by,
The maximum solar energy, right, system footprint shall be the percentage of lot size as provided in table 5.1,
But that's not,
no,
that's not what you
except
have
as otherwise,
defined.
except as otherwise permitted by conditional use in connection
Yeah,
with development of a.
that's not what we define.
Okay, well, then we just do A small, B large, C repeat it, you need to.
Generally speaking, you don't wanna do that in statutory drafting. You
I
don't
know,
wanna have
because
that the
it'll be
same,
there.
cause if you change one of them and then you don't change the other one, then you.
Understand.
But so the preferred way of doing it ordinarily would be to just say, you can have an entry in here that says solar energy system footprint, and then just and all it says is it directs you to the section in the ordinance that discusses those.
The definitions.
So we have those definitions, but we need to allow that to exceed the table 5.1. That's what we're trying to do. Right? That's
Yeah,
what
so
it's
the way
there.
you do it is you'd say notwithstanding the foregoing, or notwithstanding.
Well, so we wanna say, as provided, so we wanna say the maximum solar energy system footprint may exceed the percentage of lot sizes provided in table 5.1, in connection with conditional use permit, granted by the planning
that's where I thought by changing 514D to specifically reference solar energy systems, Article 14.
Right, but the problem is it's not special exception and it's not
Um,
building.
But neither is planned development, senior housing.
You know, those involve buildings.
But it says otherwise permitted by special exception in connection with lot size averaging subdivisions. And then you have planned development, which is not by special exception, senior housing, that's not by special exception, and solar energy systems that are not by special exception. The special exception, I believe, is only referring to the lot size averaging.
Oh, I see, because the language says except as otherwise permitted by special exception.
Yeah,
So you would look what's permitted in special exception, and that would guide you towards what on this list
Yeah.
was relevant. Is that what you're saying?
yeah.
Okay, so with that in mind, could we just add, after, maybe after the period, solar energy systems, the language that we gotta come up with. Solar energy systems can exceed the maximum, we got the building again.
I still think we should, it's gonna be confusing if we don't have a separate section. You're trying
We
to
got
put
the
it in with all
separate
the
section.
buildings.
Well, we were
Which I
going
was
back,
thinking
no,
about-
we were
I was
going
thinking
back
about
to
adding it
not
to-
having a separate section.
No, I think we need a separate
Yeah, we
section.
need a
All right.
separate section.
So let's get it together, folks, because we keep going back and
Okay,
forth.
so we can just say the building footprint for solar energy system may exceed the percentage of lot size as provided in table 5.1, period.
But that doesn't give any guidance, it's got a reference where it's defined.
It's defined in the definitions. I mean,
Can we say that?
Yes, we should say, I mean, I think so. Otherwise, people are gonna go, okay, well, what does that mean?
so the maximum footprint for solar energy systems may exceed the lot size limitation provided in table 5.1, but must not exceed, so we don't have a limitation.
You're limited by the size of the solar.
Yeah, you're not, we don't have a limit, so it's just, I would say something maybe like consistent with the definitions and
Consistent
with the footprint definitions.
with the footprint contained in Article 2.
Footprint defined in Article
Footprint set forth,
2, set forth,
yeah,
that sounds good.
in Article 2, solar energy systems, okay.
Okay, so you have that language?
Well, I'll write it out, the maximum, okay, so this is standalone little sentence. The maximum footprint for solar energy systems may exceed the lot size limitation provided in table 5.1, consistent with the footprint set forth in Article 2, solar energy systems. We
So,
have too many set forths,
yeah,
Okay, so then go back to define.
so, no, it's not defined though.
Okay.
It's provided in table, yeah, okay, so the maximum SCS exceed the lot size limitations provided in table 5.1, consistent with footprint set forth in Article 2 SCS.
That's good.
Okay, I'll just write it out for David.
So then, we don't wanna lead people on to think that you can have 20,000 square feet in the Lyme Common District. I think,
Are large systems allowed there?
No,
no,
No.
they're not.
So we're set, we get that figured.
it's already fine. It's already defined in Article 2.
So we're saying consistent with Article 2.
No, Article 2 does not say where you can have your systems.
Well,
It only says where we can have them in the requirements for conditional use permit.
Right, but they can only go where there's,
14.4,
14.4,
requirements for a conditional use permit.
Right,
Large solar energy systems are only allowed in the rural, commercial, and skiway zoning districts.
but that conflicts with what we are just saying.
well, would it make,
14.
then we can add, and also consistent with 14, what is the thing?
14.4,
14.4, which,
A and B are good.
Could you start out saying, solar energy systems that meet the requirements of Article 14? So, you know, that basically says everything's gotta meet those, and then go on to.
right, so that would be
That
the
would work.
opening sentence,
Yeah,
I mean, the opening clause,
yeah.
That works.
okay.
So this is different from what I thought, and so I just wanna clarify that I'm understanding it right, so that if I had a half-acre lot, and I wanted to put up 2,000 square foot solar array, that's, I haven't done the arithmetic, but I wager that that's far over the allowed lot coverage at home.
Yeah, I don't think that was our intention for,
Okay.
yeah,
Uh,
thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, it's
That
not,
you
it,
can build a solar, right?
Well,
Or you cannot.
so I got a half-acre lot, and I wanna put up 2,000 square feet, and it's not in my front yard.
with what we're doing here, we're overriding the maximum lot coverage.
Right.
Was that our intention? That wasn't my understanding on a half-acre lot, that you could just, what, you know, we have,
Half-acre lot's about 20,000 square feet.
I think we're just, for this section, we're overriding the building footprint, but not the lot coverage. So there's two different things, we've got building
Yeah,
Yeah, you have footprint,
footprint, and then
Okay,
you
so-
have lot coverage.
so Rich Brown's concern,
So I got a half-acre, so a half-acre is 21,000 square feet.
Right.
And in the rural district,
yeah,
I can get 2% of that. My brain doesn't work anymore.
2% of the 21,000?
Yeah, so 1% is 210, so it's
Right.
400 square feet.
400 square feet.
And so, are we saying,
I don't know whether, we
Well-
know what we're saying.
I think that the intent was to limit the footprint. Because you remember the lot coverage
Right, so you're
is a
talking about
greater
lot
number.
coverage.
so the largest panel I could have would be the 2%, call it 400 square feet, just for,
The largest panel,
Yes.
yes, because.
Panel footprint.
panel footprint,
Right,
yeah.
and
Is
so
that
I could
right?
have multiples of those.
Yes,
Oh, well, no, because we said multiples count as a single structure.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
it's, yeah,
And so,
So you would still be, your overriding limitation is the footprint. Unless you're not, well, again, I'd have to reread, the cumulative, right, a cumulative footprint, which to me is going, as zoning administrator, I'm going to read that and say, that if you have, you know, 6 panels on the right side of your house and 6 panels on the left side of your house, I'm gonna add those together, even though they're not touching, they're not, because that to me is a cumulative.
right,
So I'm looking at, you're not gonna get more than 2,000 square feet of solar systems for small, or solar panels for,
so what do you think about?
but we don't wanna have anything contradictory.
right, and I think, again, I think that's the reason you went with the changes to, getting rid of building footprint to just footprint. was to
Yeah.
bring solar into that umbrella of footprint so that if you were, like you said, quarter acre lot, a half acre lot, you get 400 square feet, that's it, you're done.
You're saying that was the intention?
Yes.
Okay, but then we found that that approach is flawed.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, is it?
Oh, God.
Well, it wasn't flawed with the original, because the original, it put it under the same guise as, you got rid of building and just said footprint, all of the footprint. And so it pulled it underneath those regulations.
Well, in the table though, we have only maximum building footprint. We don't have regular footprint.
So what if we added something to the table that was solar energy system footprint? No, we can't, because we don't have that.
Well, we can.
Well, I would change maximum building footprint, table 5.1 to just maximum footprint.
I'm just concerned that we're having unintended consequences when we do that.
First of all, are there half-acre building lots in the rural district?
I'm sure there are.
I mean,
Those would
my,
be old,
Yeah,
Grandfather.
they're grandfathered, sure.
right, and, you know, I mean, my lot, is about an acre and a half,
Yeah, so
so
you
there's
have
plenty of
these
smaller
odd
lots.
My neighbor's a third of an acre.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you look up Route 10, there's a bunch of very small lots that are in the rural district.
Okay, so let's nail this down. Where are we with it? Because every time it seems like we're getting somewhere, we end up right back at the same place. So,
Well, I think we decided we're gonna add a separate section to 514.
well, we've decided several things. None of them is stuff.
Well, but I mean, I'm content to add a 5.14.1 that talks about the maximum footprint.
As per,
As suggested by Vicky,
Yeah.
but what number do we wanna say there? And if, you know, if we really do say the rural district is 2%,
well, yeah, I don't know what the answer is. Vicki, you have any thoughts on what that number might be? Or, and we can't just leave it, you know, go look at the definition?
well, would we want, I mean, we could say you can put up to 2,000 square feet on your third of an acre
I think,
parcel.
I think that would be okay with me.
Yeah, I was just
That'd
gonna say
certainly
that,
be-
I mean, that would be the simplest way to define it, if we wanna do that. To say you can put 2,000 square feet anywhere, essentially,
Yep.
anywhere.
as
If
long
that's-
as it doesn't
if that's
exceed
what we
the
want.
max lot coverage though. We're gonna leave the max lot coverage alone, right?
Yeah,
Which is 26,000 or something.
No,
Yes.
well,
Well,
the rural
depends on the-
it's
right.
12%.
12%.
Oh, 12%, right,
Rural.
right, right.
So it'd be 12% of your half acre.
Right.
Yeah, so does that work? What's 12% of 12% of 21,000
That'd be like
would be,
2% is 400, call it squishy numbers, so 12 would be, 6 times that, it'd be 2,400 square feet.
25, 20.
All right, I believe it.
so that would work.
Yeah, yeah, they could even, yeah.
Right,
They'd be verging into large if they did, but that assumes there's nothing else on the lot.
If that's what we want, we have to decide if that's what we want. Right, Rich?
yeah, I mean, my concern is that we're trying to do something very narrow, and in trying to do it, we're moving things all over the place.
Well, I thought the intent was that everyone could have a small system,
Yeah,
Yep.
so that's what we're saying.
is that all we're saying?
But I think that really what we're getting to is not just, I don't understand, I think we will need to not think about footprint, what we care about is lot coverage, right?
Ooh,
Ooh, that's interesting.
And,
But that's not what we,
because we're not talking about buildings. So what if we just think about how it contributes to lot coverage? Because that's what we're really regulating is with drip edge and, you know, pedestals and transformers and that kind of thing.
Hey, David Robbins, does that sound okay to you? Or does that start to mess up other things?
No, it simplifies things for me,
Okay.
because now I'm only looking at one number. And you specifically say that solar energy systems must conform with lot coverage requirements. It's in Article 14.
Right.
Hmm.
So what is that?
So, okay, so the building footprint wouldn't apply, because it's not a building, okay? So we don't even have to mess with that then. So the question is are people gonna be able to get, their solar system on their small lots? And
In most cases, I would say that they would not. If the lot's tiny and there's a house on it,
right.
the lot coverage is usually pretty well
Okay,
marked
so-
up.
Yeah, we say solar energy systems must conform to lot coverage requirements.
Unless they put it on the roof.
Right, but that's, yeah, that's,
Yeah, well, I don't know that we should be like encouraging cramming, you know, if you don't have the lot coverage, you don't have the lot coverage. You can build out to the maximum of your lot cover, of your lot.
Okay, then we just leave it as is and take out all this 514 stuff. Because we don't,
I
it's
think
not,
so, yeah.
it's not building footprint, so David doesn't have to look at it, and all he needs to look at is lot coverage and.
So,
Yeah, so that.
so what are we taking out? That, we're not fussing with 514 at all?
I would say that's the case, because it's not a building.
Yep.
What about setbacks?
You said that all of that should still apply, of course.
Yeah.
Right, so if
If
you have a
it's a
really
structure.
small lot with setbacks, you might. be
You're
fine.
limited, you're limited by your tiny lot.
Right, yes.
now, the other thing is, if you look at 825, it is a special exception allowing additional up to 1,000 square feet in most districts, 500 in the Lyme Common and Lyme Center districts. So the zoning board can approve some expansion,
These are, yeah, for
Yeah,
non-conforming,
so
are they
it's-
non-conforming lots? or-
yes.
So we're just back to like having solar energy systems be regulated just like any.
Structure.
Yep, and I mean,
that's really
under,
what we should do, it makes it a whole lot easier.
yeah, under Article 2, you define solar energy systems, it says a structure. So it is clearly a structure.
Yep, yep, so let's take out our, our amendment gets shorter, changes to 514 go away.
So how do we know that it's, where does it say that it's now a structure and not?
It says in the definition.
In the very,
Oh,
solar energy
A
system.
structure that relies upon sunshine.
Yep,
Okay, so that's good.
yeah,
Right.
that's good.
So we don't have to modify 4.42 at
So,
all?
so we can, 514, we can just cross that whole section.
514, yeah, it makes it shorter, that's
And
good.
how do you say that while it's on the roll?
Excuse me?
Well, so the maximum building footprint is the largest building you can build. You can
Right.
build multiples of those, so if you
Right.
can have a 1,000 square foot building out, whatever. You can, in a rural district, 1,000 square foot building, you could have up to 6 of those, because your
Right.
lot coverage is.
But we're saying that a solar system is the cumulative thing, so
Well, we're saying a solar system is as big as it is, up to if it's up to 2,000 square feet, it's a small
Small
system is up to
system,
2,000
yeah.
square feet.
Right.
We don't care, if you're covering too much of your lot, you can't do it.
Right.
But you can if you can fit a 2,000 square foot garage or barn on your property, you can put the 2,000 square foot.
Right. I'm not understanding how somebody in the future doesn't interpret this max building footprint as applying to,
It's not a building.
Because it's not a building,
okay.
and we're defining the sizes in the definition. So I think,
Okay.
We wanna add a clarifying provision elsewhere that
We
says
might
for
wanna-
purposes of section
Yeah.
514, a solar energy system is not a building.
I mean, if you look at the definition of a building,
Yeah.
any combination of any materials, whether portable, movable, or fixed, having a roof.
Yeah.
So, right then and there, I'm gonna say,
And do we have a not a building?
it's not a building.
Okay, good enough for me.
And then it says, and built for shelter of persons, animal, or property.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we all know about the solar company that went out of business because they put roofs over their. Okay, so,
okay, so we do need to keep the language of
Planning
4.42,
board.
because that talks about accessory use.
Yeah,
Yes.
but I'm just thinking about, how now, companies do make roofing that are solar panels, and so.
But that's not,
That's not a solar energy system, that's a building with a roof.
but,
Or it's a roof mounted.
yeah, it's a roof mounted
Roof-mounted solar.
Right.
solar,
okay,
so I
just-
don't,
yeah, Right.
I wouldn't care.
So it's a building though.
To me, that, again, I'm
Yeah,
gonna
it
say it's a
doesn't
building
count, yeah,
material
yeah, It's a
and.
building material, yep, okay.
okay,
Yeah.
so
I
what were
would
you
not-
saying about 442, Rich?
We do
Brad?
need to retain that, because that talks about accessory uses, which we do wanna permit.
So add to section 442D, solar energy system, right?
Yep,
Okay. All right,
So what's that, now we've covered two of Dave Roby's
yeah, so let's
comments?
keep,
The other ones are easy.
let's keep rolling.
okay.
That's it.
Prohibit the systems in the side yards as well as the front yards, what do people think of that?
No, some
No.
people's side yards are big.
We talked about it.
Okay, yeah, okay, so,
We already say they can't go between the house and the
Yeah,
road,
okay.
and so.
yeah, I think we're okay with that. References a designated scenic road, I suggest appendix, all of that, what do you think?
The scenic roads are already in the definitions, isn't
No, we don't need to define them, I mean, they exist and I
it?
don't.
No, I mean, they're in the zoning ordinance definitions already, aren't they?
No,
No,
no.
they're a separate list, but I would, again,
Those can change.
well, it can change, yeah, that's why it's like referencing a, some other list, it's, either you're going to have the list in the zoning ordinance, and that's the only place, or you just reference and say scenic roads, because as they change, you're,
Yeah, you don't wanna
I
mess
think
with
Going
David
back.
Roby here is just suggesting that we identify what the cross references that we're using.
Right.
Is that, do we have one, or?
I think there's always one existent,
This town meeting took action to designate those scenic roads, so.
so
in
they
most
haven't
cases-
changed in quite a while.
No, it's in the
It's
master
been years
plan.
and years. So where are they listed, David, in the zone?
I have a list of them,
I mean, if somebody wants to see a lit, is there any place they can go?
Yeah, because maybe somebody's interested in doing the project and they're going, I wonder whether I'm on
I
scenic
found that
road.
language at one point, because we put it in the questionnaire.
Yeah, it was in the questionnaire.
Right, and we ticked off, in the questionnaire, we said it's
We-
Breck Hill and
Right.
it's
Yeah,
these and
exactly.
that, right.
Okay, so there's a map of, if I just Google it, there's a map of scenic roads on the town website. It's on Lyme Road, the map is called Lyme Roads, and the scenic roads are one component. It says state roads, town road gravel, scenic roads paved, scenic roads gravel.
Nobody's gonna find that, really.
No, I just Googled scenic road Lyme, New Hampshire, and it came up with it right here. Maybe we put this map on the front cover of the zoning ordinance.
Well,
that shows
David,
scenic roads.
we had talked about you were gonna put a lot of the different components
Yeah.
together. Could you just put that in there as well?
I could, just as a,
Just as a reference?
It has to be color though, otherwise it's
Or-
hard to read.
And where we use the term scenic roads, could we just refer to scenic roads as designated in the Lyme master plan or wherever?
It's
No,
not
it's
on the master
designated by
plan.
town meeting,
As designated?
Yeah.
Or as designated at town meeting, then.
Yeah.
as designated by town meeting, because
Yeah.
there's many
Yeah.
town meetings probably
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
got them.
Right.
so
They're not
we're,
that many,
all right,
And
so.
it's clear, and
Yeah.
somebody
Well,
knows
if
where to go
somebody-
look for it.
as
I guess so,
designated.
if they Google it, yeah. they
Okay,
can
so
find it, yeah.
could you add that language for David? Thank you.
yeah, if you look on, I think this is the,
Do you have this one here?
yeah, that's, if you look at the, it's on the highway department's
No, you're,
homepage on the
Yeah, yeah,
website.
yeah.
It's the very
That
first
looks
menu.
beautiful.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Love it.
Nice and clear, it's a great.
Okay.
So we're adding, something to the end of 14.4, A, where it says, requires upgraded utilities on a designated scenic road, parentheses.
C.
As- On a
Like
designated,
town meeting.
designated by town meeting scenic road, I mean, that's the formal things, a designated scenic road, on a scenic road as designated by Lyme town meeting.
But on the other hand, if you, does the town have a reference that just lists those? I mean, you said you Googled.
I
scenic
got the
road.
map, I don't,
I think we can just add it to
could be in the
the,
master
to the
plan,
ordinance.
but I don't know.
Yeah, that was my question.
I would just
whether it was-
say the town scenic roads, and if someone is unsure,
They will call you.
they'll call me and say,
Yeah,
hey.
I think we're getting,
And I think to the extent you can say, oh, it's on the website at this page, or here's the URL,
Yep.
ding, it comes up, that's adequate.
I think we should
Yes.
move on.
Yep.
Okay, then he's saying 20,000 is pretty large. I think
I think we intend that.
we've,
Beat that to death.
yeah, we'd be
I
moved to
agree.
that. Okay, I suggest revising the first sentence to refer to glare onto abutting properties rather than structures, and to nearby roadways rather than abutting roadways.
That sounds fine.
I don't have any issue with that.
Okay, so this is section, can you show me where you?
It's in D, 14.4D.
Oh, the 14. That's why, okay,
And
so,
that's
You lost the
your,
one.
conditional use.
right, okay, that's where I was confused. So 14D, so we're applicant.
Okay, scenic roads are on page 3-3 of the 2013 master plan. The list,
Okay, all right, scenic roads is,
okay?
or we could just leave it, people.
I'm just
people-
saying, if somebody wants to find a list
They can
printed on,
find it.
on page 3-3.
So what are we saying in 14.4D? Applicant must supply a statement detailing potential system glare onto abutting building properties.
Properties
And nearby roadways.
nearby,
Okay,
nearby roadways, yeah.
abutting properties. Nearby roadways. Okay. Now we're really flying. Refer section,
Should there be a comma after roadways? I'm just,
Yeah.
Yes?
yes.
okay, there is now.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you. Okay, section 14.4 refers to solar footprint. Oh, I mean, I think we've already,
Well, John, can I bring something up?
please,
Which
that's why you're here.
I just wonder whether in the definitions, A and B, where we say with a cumulative footprint of 2,000 feet, I think it would be a lot more clear if we said with a cumulative footprint of panels of 2,000 square feet.
Cumulative footprint, well, you mean a cumulative panel footprint?
Yeah, okay, cumulative panel footprint, which, it just seems to clear
Right.
a lot of things up for people, you know?
No, that,
But it's not just the panels, it can be the pedestal.
Right.
It can be a transformer.
right, it's a cumulative footprint.
It's
all
the system,
components.
not just the
Yeah.
Right.
panels.
So we could say cumulative system footprint.
Yeah,
Is that okay?
yeah, I think cumulative system footprint. is-
So, I wanna be really careful here
Sure.
because,
We should be.
we defined in E, the fixed solar energy system,
Yeah.
footprint shall be measured by the drip lines. That's where we actually measure, give the definition of the measurement.
Except that, unless another part of the system has
Sure,
a greater
sure, sure, sure.
footprint.
But it's E that defines the drip lines.
Okay,
And A says, a small system is less than 2,000 feet cumulative footprint, as defined in E.
No.
It's not 2,000, square feet of panels.
it could be, well,
Well, that's true,
would,
yeah, you're right.
is it system, would system work?
I'm very comfortable that we have wordsmithed
Enough?
this
Yeah,
excruciatingly
all right,
carefully.
yeah, I agree, let's
Uh,
leave it.
Yeah.
Let's leave it.
Yeah, I think
I mean,
it's
again,
not
I'm
clear.
the one that's gonna have to,
Are you comfortable?
yeah, I am comfortable with it,
Yeah,
that just says, you know, I'm looking at that and saying the cumulative footprint, and it says, it's a drip edge, or if it has other stuff sticking out, it's that
Yeah,
stuff.
okay,
And,
Right, well, right, Dave, you know, obviously, and if it doesn't matter whether people actually have to know reading this, they'll come and talk to you, so I guess it doesn't matter.
and if they don't like my answer, they are perfectly welcome to appeal my decision to the zoning board of adjustment or
yeah,
Superior
but to
Court.
that end, we
And,
want,
oh, then Superior
but
Court,
that's-
ZBA.
that's an
So
issue,
it's-
because, you know,
We don't really want it to go there.
we
No.
don't wanna, we want it to be as clear as possible, and all of us are mortal and will not be around at some point. But anyway,
Like
let's,
agricultural soils issues,
what about that?
the special exceptions for agricultural soils.
Yeah, what?
That you don't wanna create a situation like that.
No, oh God, no. Right, exactly. So 14.4, I suggest changing the word necessary to desirable.
For H.
For H. Or desirable to minimize.
It actually changes the meaning a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess that's his intention.
Well,
I mean, if we change it, I would change it to conclude such conditions are,
I think the issue would be, necessary is kind of a very definitive.
Yeah.
Are these necessary? Are they
Right, right.
absolutely required, whereas desirable gives the planning board more leeway in setting those, because it's,
right, and that's what H is about, it's saying, it's essentially a catch-all,
yeah.
in case there's something overlooked.
And I think an applicant could argue what's necessary and what isn't,
Right.
whereas if it's desirable.
So such conditions, use permit to the extent the board includes such conditions are desirable, that's okay with me,
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's fine.
okay. All right,
There's another part.
And then he has the second part of
oh
that,
no.
which I think is fine too.
I also
Yeah.
suggest revising the last phrase so that it reads comply with the purpose, oh, that's, I mean, that's, sure, that's
Yeah,
boilerplate,
fine.
really. So, I mean, does anybody object to that?
No.
Okay, 14.4,
Can you just, I don't have David's email up.
So the last sentence,
Want me to
after
send it
the
to you
word
again?
properties.
I have it, I just figure I'm changing it as we, on the fly, so. So, we're,
Go ahead,
After
Rich.
the last sentence there, it says properties, comma, and two, and then substitute rather than preserve, substitute comply with the purpose of the zoning ordinance as set forth in section 1.20, period.
1.02, isn't it, or is it 1.20?
1.20,
Is that right?
is that?
Maybe I dyslexified it.
David, could you send it to me? I seem to be on some lists and not.
Yeah, it's 1.2.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so is that the end of David's list?
Yep.
Wonderful. So,
He did not intend to.
it's, all right, we'll wait for you to get back. So, what I would throw out for consideration is that we move this to a hearing, and if we decide we don't like it, we just shut it down. But if we can send it forward and get feedback, and then we have the option of sending it to town or not.
Or no, I think that's a good.
But, all right, we'll wait for Tim to get back and.
Oh, yeah.
And then we can get out of here. I know everybody would like to stay a little longer, but there are things in life that we all have to deal with, and maybe the meeting will be one of them.
Actually, John, I had sent you a note, I wanted to maybe put a bug in people's ear about the topic that I talked about as far as communications.
Sure, I sent, David, I told David, and David sent that to everybody. Did you see that? When he sent the agenda out, he sent a reminder. Anyway,
Okay.
we'll do it now.
So,
This is a reminder that whenever you're sending something to the board, send it to David so that you're complying with the open hearing.
Yeah, I sent a couple of things, I can't remember, I sent you Jonah Richards' thing, I think. I think I sent Jonah Richards' newsletter, which was sort of published. I wasn't considering that part of planning board
Well,
stuff.
it
really,
doesn't
so-
matter.
I know, so
It's
that's fine. I
it's
won't-
close enough, just don't mess around.
Yeah, that's fine.
select boards of the past, and so, not something you have personally been involved in, but have asked that all communications
Yes.
to boards and committees go through
And
the select board office, so that,
That's always been the policy
Right.
since I can
Yeah,
remember on the board.
I mean, I sent it to a whole bunch of
All
people.
right, we don't need to get into
Yeah,
this.
okay.
But just everybody keep that in mind.
right.
So, I'd like to make a motion, and David, tell me the ways in which I'm doing it incorrectly. I'd like to make a motion to send our, what is our number, article? Article 14.
Zoning amendment.
to the zoning, I would just say the solar
Solar energy amendment
amendment.
to hearing. Is that,
Yep.
okay, is there a second?
Time and date?
Oh, well, I do have that written down.
January,
Is this our last?
Is that the 9th?
Yeah, this is the last December meeting,
Yes.
because the next one falls on the Christmas or during.
Yeah, somebody look at when the second Thursday,
January 12th.
or, January 12th,
Yep.
2023.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a second? I think I saw Vicky. Okay, Vicky, all those in favor? All those opposed? All right, thank you for, that was not easy. Thank you for your patience and hard work throughout this whole thing. Anybody,
There was nothing specific or tangible in any of the subsequent emails that Mr. Roby sent us? Was there?
You know, I got one, but I didn't have time today, and I didn't have time.
Basically, he was concerned about, changing the article, to allow larger systems in the time frame.
Okay, so, but there's nothing
No, there
of the
was-
sort
there
that
were
was
no-
in his first that was
No.
sort of.
There's nothing
Yeah,
in this.
this was just, he wasn't supporting the larger. Does anybody have any other matters that
No,
they're?
actually, he's quite more general about saying that we didn't circulate a comprehensive questionnaire and should have done due diligence and.
You mean earlier?
No, he wants a later one,
Oh.
with now our,
Yeah, he
Our
wants us to
proposal.
defer and,
Oh,
He doesn't want us to
Bit more
send us
doesn't
the
think we've
town.
had enough process.
yeah. Well,
Which I would disagree with, because we did a lot of work.
yeah, and we did a lot of work. I mean,
well, actually, after looking at ours, I went, cause I went back and looked at Keene's, cause I thought we were gonna have to start reinventing the wheel, and I was interested to see they had a 15-foot limitation on theirs. But note that wouldn't allow some of the tracking systems, so I'm glad we went to 21.
yeah, we got, input from Reliance,
Yes,
and that's how we got to 21.
I think we went to 18 first.
Yeah. And then to 21.
Yep.
All right, folks, thank you very much. Great patience and work. Oh, do I have to do a vote or anything? We're out of here.
I think that's, you know.
Hey, happy holidays, season's greetings, happy new year to